So here we go. Okay, that is the prompt for today. So take a screenshot of that because I didn't record the whole time it took to do the prompt. Okay, metaphor. So I know you guys have been learning about metaphors for a long time now. Hopefully this is not the first time you've heard that word. So here's the long definition of metaphor. A figure of speech in which a word is applied to an object or action to which it is not literally applicable. So that's the long definition, which basically means anything, any language that is not literal is a metaphor. The short definition, the one you should write down. Metaphor is a thing representative of something else. Wow. Yeah, fancy. Academic. Yes, and I want it to be so broad because I think we get a little bit confused about what qualifies as a metaphor. So let's pretend I've got this box and everything inside this box is a metaphor. Anything that represents something else that is not meant to be taken literally is a metaphor. Inside the metaphor box, you have something called a simile. So similes are a kind of metaphor. They're just a more specific kind of metaphor. And inside this box, you've also got personification. You know, when you say like the icy wind grips me with its cold fingers or whatever, like that's a kind of metaphor. It's not meant literally, but it's a specific kind of metaphor. And even within this, you've got something called metonymy. And within metonymy, you've got something called synecdoche, and we'll talk about those later. But do you see how like there's a whole bunch of different things that apply to being called a metaphor? So I just want to clarify that because if you misspeak and you call something a metaphor when it was actually a simile, you're actually correct. You're just not being as specific as you could be. So let's look at a metaphor. We look at metaphors very similarly to how we look at symbols, where we kind of consider the thing on its own. So in Sinners in the Hand of an Angry God, we've got really good metaphors. That's an insane little speech, isn't it? I mean, it is harsh. Huh? I know. He's just like, you're all sinners. You're all going to hell. Like, good luck out there. Look at the second to last paragraph. This is Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, not the Winthrop one right after. The one where the words are bigger on the page. All right, second to last paragraph says, the God that holds you over the pit of hell, much as one holds a spider or some loathsome insect over the fire, abhors you. Do you guys know what the word abhor means? It's basically a stronger version of hate. So he abhors you, he hates you, and is dreadfully provoked. His wrath towards you burns like fire. So I like this metaphor. I mean, it's harsh, but it's a little bit funny to me. He's calling us spiders. All right, so when we're thinking about metaphors, so in your example, in your word of the day sheet, write the first part of that sentence. The God that holds you over the pit of hell, much as one holds a spider. That's your example. So this example is that the God that holds you over the pit of hell, much as one holds a spider. And that is not the only time that Jonathan Edwards, the writer of this, uses that particular metaphor, calling us spiders, because he also talks about how we're only held above the pit of hell by like a little spider's, like a thread of the web, and that it could be like, torn down at any time. It's very delicate. So he does it a couple of times. He calls us spiders. Tell me about, so this is how we're going to go about thinking about metaphors. We're going to think about the literal quality of the thing being compared to. So tell me about spiders. What are they like? Yeah, David. They're small. Good. Lots of eyes. All right. something else about spiders, more about spiders. Yeah,
Venomous sometimes.
you what?
Venomous sometimes.
Venomous
Coated.
sometimes.
It could be a phobia.
What?
It could be like a phobia.
Yeah. All right, you guys over here, what were you saying about spiders?
Hairy,
Okay.
slimy.
Slimy.
I don't know. Webster's slimy. Yeah. Fresh web. They don't be sticky, right?
Okay, what else? What was it? Creepy and crawly. Okay, even when they're not venomous, they're creepy, right? And we like even like daddy long legs, like we're afraid. I guess those are venomous, but they can't bite us. We're still afraid of them. So why is that? Like, what is the quality about them that makes them so creepy?
Everything, they're gross.
You don't really know. Like, unless you're a spider expert, you don't really know if they're venomous or not.
Oh, okay, cool. So they're kind of like the unknown. We feel like we can't tell whether or not they're venomous or not. There's something like kind of mysterious about them. What else makes them like very gross and creepy? Yeah, Doreen.
We don't know where they are.
Oh, okay. So because they're small, they're kind of like hidden. And some of them even are camouflaged. I don't know how to spell that word. I think it has a U in it somewhere. Yes, okay. Okay, they can fast.
Jump sometimes.
Maggie.
I just like adding on to unknown, like unusual. You don't know what, like.
Yeah. They're so much different from their anatomy is so much different from our anatomy that they are like, they're very inhuman, right? It's not like a cat, which we feel like we can kind of like relate to in a lot of ways. They make facial expressions that we're like, oh, it's feeling sad right now or whatever. A spider doesn't have those human qualities. JJ?
8 legs.
8 legs, lots of legs.
What?
Yes, and that also makes them very, very inhuman feeling. And the way that they crawled and they're low to the ground.
Okay.
I literally have shivers. Look,
Are we this afraid of spiders? All right, so we're gonna take these qualities of the spider. Let's face forward. That could be a start for this side of the room. Facing forward. Thank you. We're taking these qualities of the spider and we're trying to apply that into what Edwards is saying about us as people. Now, some of these might be like relevant and some of them might not be. Well, what is he saying about people then? Yeah.
like despised.
Okay, good.
Gross.
God
Down on.
God is like the person in this instance, right? And the spider is us, so we are despised and gross to God. Looked down on.
Imperfect.
Yeah, imperfect. But is that word imperfect? Is that strong enough a word to describe it? Like, I think imperfect might be a more modern Christian way of looking, like for most Christian religions today. It's like God looks at his human children as imperfect, maybe, right? But it's way more than that for Edwards. Sinful, okay? What was it? JJ?
We could be venomous.
Yes, okay, good.
Or inside of top.
So potentially dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And to ourselves and to society. Yeah. So it's not just like he's saying we're gross and we're something we want to, that God wants to avoid, but it's also we can infect. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, like, it's like we're poisonous to like his perfect society.
Yes, to his perfect society. I like that a lot. Yeah, God maybe, put everything the way that he wanted it, but people are really messing it up for him. Same way a spider would mess up a really clean, nice bathroom, Katie.
Like untrustworthy.
Yeah, untrustworthy. Small. And when you say small, that's also metaphorical, right?
Yeah,
What does
like
it
if
mean?
his eyes were small and were less than.
I think insignificant a little
Yeah.
bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Maggie.
Afraid of or just like not really care about, like,
Yeah.
in a way.
And I don't think he's saying God's afraid of us, right? Because he's holding us in his hand. When you are holding a spider in your hand above something, what are you about to do?
Kill it.
Drop it down the toilet, right? That's what I mean, that's messed up. I would When I'm in a nice caring mood, I will take the spider outside and let it go and say, free to live in this world. But if I'm in a cranky mood and I don't want that spider there really badly, I'm dropping it in the toilet. So it's more like disdainful than anything. Tell me about this idea too, that they're like kind of like inhuman, unknown, something totally like alien to us. Yeah, Gavin.
No, we don't see them as individuals, they're all like spiders.
Yeah. That's so important here because I think sometimes when we read religious text, we're looking at it and we're putting our own ideas of religion onto that religious text. Jonathan Edwards, I mean, maybe some of you are part of a religion like this, but for the most part, these are pretty rare now in American society. Jonathan Edwards was operating from a place where it was very, very strict, where God didn't have personal relationships with each of his children. It was more like God is this overpowering, like, I mean, all powerful, all knowing, very scary person that could drop you into hell, right? So here's my question though. What is the point of that? Like, why does somebody want to get up in front of a group of people and say, God hates you, okay, you know, have a nice day. Yeah, Sophia.
It's a scare tactic to them like not sinning.
And to them not sinning.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
like if you're scared of God, you're gonna do what it says.
Okay, good. So rather than looking at an all-loving God the way Winthrop does, Edwards is preaching that God, it could be like full of hatred and abhorrence for people, right? And if that is true, then you do not want to get on his bad side. So whatever you can do to stay kind of outside of his hand that he's going to drop over the fires of hell, that's where you want to be. Yeah, so like he's trying to say here, you can avoid this position that you might be in. Maggie?
When I read it, I thought it was almost like a beware kind of way, or like a threat. It's like, oh, if you do this punishment, this might happen to you. So
Yeah, right. And I think it's so important too that he's not saying necessarily here that if you sin, he's going to drop you into hell. He's saying God could do it at any time whenever he wants to. Like he's saying God is all powerful. It is only through his mercy that he doesn't do it, is what he's saying. And if we were to read more of Edwards actually had a lot of really lovely, nice, warm, kind-hearted speeches where he talked about the mercy that Christ provides. Here he is talking about God, though, and saying that he could do it whenever he wanted to, just according to his whims. JJ?
It's just off what both of them are saying. Fear tactics and consequences really get people to think about what they're doing, and it can help them join what he wants them to do.
Yeah, and I think if you're considering that like an all-powerful being is very merciful and nice, you might be more willing to mess up a little bit, hoping that he'll forgive you. Like I feel like that in my class sometimes. If I'm harsh about deadlines, people turn things in on time. If I'm like nice about deadlines, like, I don't know, like, yeah, tell me your excuses, then people don't turn things in ever, you know? So there's like this idea that if you're harsh from the beginning, they're going to follow the way you want them to. Bryn?
I think like the scare tactic is also like used, it's like not saying like if you sin at all, like you're going to hell. And I think that's they kind of say that because maybe like the leaders of that like religion kind of like leaves up to them like, oh, well, I like that person and they didn't do it like that bad to them.
Yes.
But less to them because God's more forgiving because blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so the context behind this speech is that the leaders of the congregation where he gave the speech, the sermon, we should say, they were like, all of our parishioners, all of the people in our church, they're not really taking this religion seriously enough for us. So they call in Jonathan Edwards to give this speech. So maybe they were seen as, you know, the church itself being like a nice, kind place to be. And Jonathan Edwards came in and kind of gave them that reality check that he felt they needed. With spiders as a metaphor. So on your green paper, you're going to write about the effects of this metaphor then. Why did he choose to use spiders as a metaphor? How does that affect his argument? Write down as much as you can in that little box. Made drunk with your blood. This speech is intense. All right, and then when you're done, open up to chapter 3 of Scarlet Letter. We're gonna look at one more metaphor before we move on. If you need copies, they're over there on top of the Tupperware. We're just looking at one sentence. You could also just look at the person's next to you. Chapter 3 is called The Recognition. So I think there's a connection here with Edwards. I want to be clear, I'm not saying that Shillingsworth is like by anyone seen as like an agent of God. Like Hawthorne doesn't see him that way, the Puritans wouldn't see him that way. That's not the connection to make, but he is retributive. He is looking for vengeance. And he's looking for vengeance in the way Edwards kind of describes God as looking for vengeance. And it uses another creepy crawly thing in this chapter in a similar way to the spider idea, I think. So in chapter 3, it's called The Recognition. This is when Chillingworth is standing on the edge of the town and he sees Hester out on the scaffold and he sees that she has a baby and he has been gone for a couple of years now. So he knows that baby isn't his, right? And he's just sort of like observing things. Hester looks out and sees that it's him and she can tell that it's him because I think we talked about this in this class. He has this slight deformity, it says. We talked about that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so she recognizes him and it says in the 3rd paragraph, at his arrival in the marketplace, and sometimes before she saw him, the stranger had bent his eyes on Hester Prynne. It was carelessly at first, like a man chiefly accustomed to look inward, and to whom external matters are of little value and import, unless they bear relation to something within his own mind. So he's kind of like an introverted nerd, like he just likes to think about stuff more. And then it says, very soon, however, his look became keen and penetrative. A writhing horror twisted itself across his features like a snake gliding swiftly over them and making one little pause with all its wreathed intervolutions in open sight. His face darkened with some powerful emotion, which nevertheless he so instantaneously controlled by an effort of his will that, save at a single moment, its expression might have passed for calmness. After a brief space, the convulsion grew almost imperceptible and finally subsided into the depths of his nature. When he found the eyes of Hester Prynne fastened on his own and saw that she appeared to recognize him, he slowly and calmly raised his finger, made a gesture with it in the air, and laid it on his lips. So he basically has this moment of recognition and then immediately gains control of himself and tells Hester, don't say anything about me. The metaphor there, do you see it? Like a snake gliding swiftly over them. It's comparing a look of horror. The look of horror that happens because of this recognition of Hester with the baby is like a snake gliding swiftly over them. So just like we did before, tell me about snakes. What are they like? JJ? Slithery. All right, cool. What else?
No, they're not slimy.
No,
They're scaly. Scaly.
They're not slimy.
Scaly, there we go. What else?
Smooth.
They're smooth.
What? Have you ever felt scaly? Smooth?
Yeah.
So smooth.
Yeah, they're smooth. Yeah, Gavin. I can't hear.
Kind of represented the sequel.
Yes, and why is that? The Bible, yeah, all right. So you got the original snake is Satan. And that's why they're associated with the deceptive quality, because what does the snake in the Bible do? Yeah, it convinces Eve to taste the apple, right? And so it's kind of like also, I'm going to put manipulative over here. Okay, so this is another way that it is used as like an archetype, remember that word, or metaphor. Let's keep going on what a snake is like too. Yeah. Sneaky. I think that kind of applies to both. This snake is sneaky. This snake is sneaky. Why does the physical, actual snake seem sneaky to us? Like just a regular old snake.
It's like
Close to the ground.
Like
Comes out of
quiet.
nowhere.
Yeah. And then it will like spring on you, right?
Yeah. It's patient.
Good. Oh, patience. Nasty. Okay, what else? Yeah, no.
Clever,
What was that?
clever.
They're clever. What makes the actual physical real snake clever?
Just
Ah, good. I'm gonna say it hunts too. It's a hunter. It's a predator. Okay, tell me more about snakes. Yeah, Keegan.
When they have like actual prey, they don't just like devour it, they like suffocate it first.
Oh, yeah, okay. So they either are venomous, right? Venom. How did I spell it over there? I spelled it right. There we go. Venomous. Or they constrict. And when they eat the thing, they're like unhinging their jaw, swallowing it, and it's slowly digesting inside their stomach, right? So I'm gonna say slow digestion as they're like sucking the life juices out of that thing. Yeah, Maggie.
Okay, this kind of sounds like that, like eating, but they're like, they've always just been like people.
Yeah, they're seen as like mean and evil. Yes. Do we have any snake fans in here that are just like, they're cute and I love my pet Filbert or whatever his name is?
Cool, I wouldn't call them.
Oh, okay, okay. Kaylee? They're powerful, yes. They take down animals that you think they could never take down. Like if they bit you and you weren't near help, they could kill you, right? And they're these just small things. Anything else we want to say about them? This is a very good list. Oh yeah.
Okay, I don't know how you add on your list, but you can't, it's like the same, can't judge a book by its cover because it like looks like it doesn't seem like it would be like harmful, but then like it can be.
Okay. So like they've got kind of hidden harms.
Yeah.
Right, good. Yeah, and they make this sound. And they've got a forked tongue. Anyone know what that's a cliche for? If you say that somebody has a forked tongue, what does that mean? Yeah, and it means they're lying, right? So it's part of that deceptive quality too. All right, so you got all these qualities in snake, right? So tell the person next to you what it means that when the book does not call Chillingworth a snake, it calls the look of horror that comes over his face. It calls that a snake. So what does that mean about Chillingworth? Talk to the person next to you. Ooh. Okay, let's regroup. So if it is comparing this look of horror, he sees Hester, this look of horror slithers over his face like a snake. Why is Hawthorne using this metaphor here? JJ?
It's like when you like get stopped out of something out of fear, you like shake a little, or you like get goosebumps and it slithers and like an S, like you shake.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so it's like this physical reaction that he's having to the realization, right? And when you think about that like shivering kind of like feel to it, actually that kind of reminds me of like a rattlesnake or something. It kind of moves from one spot to the other, you were saying, like it kind of like goes down, and I always feel it on the back of my neck, right? I think that's really important here, that it's starting at a small point, this look that is crossing his face, but it's kind of like encompassing all of him. So when it says gliding swiftly over his features, it is like having an effect on his whole person. If his features, if the eyes are the window to the soul, this look of horror is is gliding over his soul and changing him. Sophia, and then to Kevin.
I think it's like this realization that he's been almost manipulated, and like this situation was like things of the qualities of him, like sneaky, clever, but like almost slow.
Okay, good. Here's what I love about that. It's like, it's not necessarily Hester that is manipulating him, right? Or even the situation. It's the look of horror itself that is manipulating him. So it's like he's almost like coming under the spell of the feeling of horror that he has. The kind of, we could think of it this way, the extreme anger that he has over what he is seeing, and like feeling just like completely let down by the woman that he was married to. Gavin?
I think that would be like in the eye contact, he like realizes what's going on in the truth comes out. It's like, and he's like catching up how to try.
Yeah, okay, cool. So that's what I think happens here too. I think that the look of horror kind of like infects, it's kind of venomous and infects who he is. And is it, I don't know if it's his true self to begin with, or if his true self that he becomes, but it completely turns him into someone who is going to slowly digest Dimmesdale, you know? So it's like it infects, and then he's going to hatch his plan, like you said. Ooh, and snakes lay eggs, so it works really well. Hatch his plan. Yeah, Maggie.
Just kind of having kind of shows like a hint of what he can be, but they're not fully giving it yet because they're like, oh, look at this guy, he's out in the corner, just like being all weird and just like someone suspicious. Like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
I want to get to know him before he like snaps and.
And it's that flash too, right? That he's able to completely control. So that plays into this deceptive quality that he can, like, snakes are camouflage too. We didn't put that up, right? So there, it's like this deceptive quality that he is not going to let out for months and months. Kaylee? Yeah, you're getting that because it's just talking about the look, right? The look is the snake, not Chillingworth, at least yet. And that's really important, that it's the look that has like changed him into this thing, at least for a moment here. Yeah, okay, good. All right, so with that in mind, let's go to John Winthrop. So this was the one, a model of Christian charity, model with 2 L's, it's old fashioned. This one also has a central metaphor. We're going to take a second to figure out what it is. All right. This speech, or I guess it was, yeah, it was a speech. He delivered it. It is full of words that mean connection. So before we look at that, what are some synonyms for the word connection? Yeah, Sophia. Knit. Bond. Here's what I'm gonna have you do. I'm gonna have all of you guys now scan through your speech, because I see that Sophia's already done this. I want all of you to do this. And circle any word that means something similar to connection.
Even when it says consists of parts.
Yeah. All right, so everyone's going through now, circling any words that mean the same thing as connection or that hint at a connection between people. Yes. All right, let's add to this list now. So we've got knit, bond, ligament, brotherly affections. What are some other words that are in this that are related to connection? What was that, Katie? Infuse. Good one. Community. Bind. Yeah, Rachel? United. Yeah, Sophie. Cohabitation. Good one. JJ? Conformity. Okay, you guys are getting the idea. There are so many synonyms. Oh yeah, Maddie. One man. That one seems to be about individuality, right? Or is it talking about? Got it. Perfect segue, because that seems to be the central metaphor of this speech, right? So you've got all of these different words that are talking about how people can bind together. And ultimately, he says this, the definition which the scripture gives us of love is this. Love is the bond of perfection. First, it is a bond or ligament. Secondly, it makes the work perfect. There is nobody, or you could read that. This is right at the bottom of the first page. It says there is nobody, or you could read that as there is no body, but consists of parts, and that which knits these parts together gives the body its perfection, is love. So this whole speech is talking about how people are going to be able to communicate together to create a unified society, right? And the central metaphor that he is talking about here, even though he doesn't quite use the word, is what's called the body politic. So this is when politicians or theorists or whoever, philosophers describe society as a human body. And they're saying that different people in society represent different parts of this human body. So you guys are going to be working in groups. I've already decided what the groups are. So I'll put those up on the board. And you are going to draw, this is going to be a alien looking body here. There we go. You are going to draw a human body, one page per group. And you're going to use what Winthrop talks about in his speech to label the different parts of the body. So he might talk about the rich and the poor and the sinners and the saints and the heads of government and the followers and whatever. You're going to try and work out how he thinks a perfect body politic would look if you were to actually map out the different parts of the metaphor. Does that make sense so far? So you can get as creative as you want. If you want to give them hair or a six-pack or however you want to interpret this, you can get as creative as you want as long as it's school appropriate. And let me put up the groups right here. It's mostly just who you're sitting with, but I wanted to make sure it got evenly distributed. So okay. There we go. They're the groups. So we'll have Allie, JJ, Maggie, and Maddie over here. JD, Dallin, and Jaden, it was awkward placements. It's just you three. Keisha, Kaylee, Dash, and Jack. So the four back here. Brayden, who is out for the bathroom, but then Taylor, Rachel, Matthew, and Jackson. And then we've got Eli, Luke, Bryn, Sophia, Jeff up in the front. Keegan, Gavin, Madeline, Xavier right here, you four. And then you guys are like an L shape right here, you four. Okay, so move your desks so that you can like actually talk to each other. If you want to like move to different areas of the room, you can do that too to get a little space. You're going to draw out the body politic, make it as detailed as you can in terms of where different people belong. And this is according to Winthrop. So you're drawing the ideal body politic, not the body politic as it actually is, the ideal one that Winthrop represents.
So we're gonna go to because it's so like just out.
Okay, just for a little bit of clarification. So Winthrop either directly talks about these people or hints at where these people would lie in a body politic. You can include them in your body politic, where to label them, and any sort of people that you also see him hinting at. This might not be exhaustive. This might not be the whole list. And then I think it could be useful also to map the people in the book, Puritan society. So I've got, there's a witch in the book, there's a doctor, there's a reverend, and there's children of sinners. And I think that would cover everyone in the book and in Winthrop. But if there's others that you think of that need a place in the body, go ahead and put them there. Does that make more sense now? All right, cool.
What are you thinking?
Are you a great artist?
And I get right to be like,
All right, so you guys get your You're already first. Labeling parts of the body. Your parts of society. The answers aren't totally secure in the Winthrop, like you have some room for how you're interpreting it, so it's okay to interpret it differently. It just sort of like. We're gonna look. Okay. So we've got here. We've got a body politic where the priests are the mouth. What is this body part? The brain?
That was us, yeah.
The brain, glory of God. You've got love, the ligaments. What's over here? Oh, that's Build-A-Bear. Here you've got like the greater good that Winthrop was saying, the Commonwealth, right? But we've got greater good here. What does that say?
That's the prophets.
The prophets are sort of attached to the heart.
It's like a lung.
A lung. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll remember that. You've got the rich as like the ligaments.
Like the
The veins, okay, you've got the pore as the feet and you've got service over here as the hand, yeah? Okay, let's start. Oh, and church is the ear. Let's start with the pore. I'm looking at all of these and I feel like, no, we're all kind of different where we put the pore, but for the most part, they're on the bottom half of the body. Why did you guys choose to put the pore as the feet?
It's like, that's what gets like the core, like doing the most work.
Okay. And you feel like the feet are the workers of the body?
Mission is less than in society, lower class.
All right, cool. So you've also got this idea that they're lower in society. Okay, we'll revisit that here in a second, Keegan.
So they're kind of walked all over, like all of the weight of like society is on them, but like
Okay, cool.
they don't recognize that, society doesn't.
Yeah. Weight of society. Okay, let me ask this, and this is like,
Dude.
okay, you got 1 more minute to finish your picture.
1 minute.
The weight of society, like, there's 2 different ways to see that. One, you could see it as they're being walked all over, right? And maybe society doesn't realize that, but they're kind of being trampled under the feet of society, or as the feet of society. Another way to see it, though, is about the importance of the poor. This is kind of like an ableist way of viewing it, but I think it's accurate for a body politic metaphor. You could have a body politic with 1 arm cut off, and that body politic would still be pretty functional. Like, let's say merchants or doctors are like the arm of the body politic. Like, you could still operate. But if you put the poor down here, if you were to cut off the legs of the body politic is far less able of getting things done, right? There's this really great essay called The Big Toe by a guy named George Bataille, doesn't matter. But he's talking about how people are kind of like obsessed with the head. All right, guys, you're good. Go sit down. He's beautiful. Look at him. Wow, so many muscles.
That's the perfect thing.
Okay, so he's talking about how people are kind of like obsessed with ideas. They're always thinking about height metaphors. So if your head is closer to the sky, your head is closer to God, that's like a nicer place to be, right? But this guy in this essay, The Big Toe, is talking about how actually the big toe should be the most like sacred, best part of the body because it is what keeps you upright. And so he talks about how the poor or the people down here at the bottom, they're actually more essential to how the body politic operates. Do you think that Winthrop agrees with that idea? Yeah, Gavin. Okay. Wait, you disagree that they're.
Oh, no, I agree.
Oh, you agree. I see. You raised your hand. Oh, okay. I thought you were like, I disagree, and then just left it at that. It's like, okay. Yeah, I agree. I think Winthrop does think that the poor are sort of at the bottom, that they are essential to society, but it might not be in the way that we're used to seeing. What is the relationship in Winthrop's essay between the poor and the rich? Kaylee? Yeah. Does it work the other way? Do the rich exist to serve the poor? Yes, it works both ways. That's the interesting thing about Winthrop is he's saying that they're both dependent on each other. Yeah, Sophia. Yes, exactly. Together but separate. There isn't a lot of change in Winthrop's model. It's like the poor are going to stay the feet, the hands are going to stay the rich, or wherever you put the rich, that's going to stay the rich. But there's got to be this kind of connection where they're mutually benefiting from each other. All right. We'll talk more about that here in a second. Okay, dominant hand is rich, non-dominant hand is poor. I like that because it's like kind of this evenness between them that Winthrop talks about. He's not necessarily saying one is worse than the other, they're just very different, right? Then you've got over here, the shoulders are the sinners. Why did you feel like the shoulders are the sinners?
Oh, I said because it's like when you sin, it's like a weight on yourself. So like that's
Okay, awesome. So this is like where the weight of sin happens. And it's kind of like pushing the whole body politic down. I could see that. That seems like the realistic way to see the body politic. Like this is how society actually works. Winthrop maybe didn't want to think about sinners. He doesn't talk about it that much, you know, like if somebody sins, what are we going to do with them? Maybe kick them out. But we'll see that. And then why do you guys feel like the brain is God?
Kind of just like everything revolves around it.
Okay, cool. So everything, the government, the dominant rich hand, everything is revolving around God. Okay, cool. Brain. God in Christ, is that in the brain or the skull? Brain. Government, priesthood, and rich. Okay, all of those are part of the mouth. Okay, why did you feel like they're all there, Jackson?
Like during the time, most people were like religion and government very connected.
Yeah.
Most people also be the richer people, kind of made people society.
Yeah, okay, good. And it's also like, so the rich are the priesthood, the rich are the government, right? And the government and the priesthood are kind of the same thing as well. So they're all working together to kind of represent what's going on up here in the head. All right, cool. Why, okay, this, when I saw you guys, I didn't talk about it, but why children of sinners is the hair?
Kind of just because like when they're born, they're kind of like cast out of society in a way, and they're not quite a part of everything, yet they're still there.
Yeah.
So it's like the hair, so it's not quite like necessary, it's not like a part of everything, but it's, yeah, deadish.
When is your hair not you anymore? That always trips me out. If the hair is on my head, it's still me.
Yeah, when you cut it off, it's not.
But when you cut it off, it's not you anymore. So if my hair's laying on my floor, that's not me anymore. Okay, good. Okay, good. So if we can cut off the hair, though, it's like there's a possibility there. It's like they're barely hanging on to society, but they could be changed. They could be cut off at any one moment. And they're aesthetic too. I like that when you're thinking about Pearl, because it's like she's sort of like the fun person that everyone gets to talk about in the town. But
The
then,
way you kind of express yourself, you can change. and
Yes.
your hair is different, and-
yes, I like that a lot. Okay, these guys have the rich and the poor divided across the body. What was the thought behind that? So that they're separated. Is there any other reason to have them on one side or the other?
Because the core isn't just like the legs, it's the whole body, like, and that's like.
Got it, okay, back.
I feel like so they're connected, but they're separate, right? So it's like, it shows how like in society we're all together kind of thing, but like
Yeah.
we're all just kind of separated into our own.
Yes.
Like, oh, they're part of like they're the sinners, they're these people, but these are also we have all these people, you know.
Yeah. Let me ask this question then. Okay, let's go back to this one. Let's pretend there is a poor person. Oh, she's not here.
Okay.
Let's pretend there's a poor person who works really, really hard in this society, and like maybe they have just a great cash crop this year, and they sell all their crops, and now they can be rich. Or maybe they want to go to school to become better and want to move up in the ranks. What would Winthrops think of that idea? Yeah, Haley. No, why not? Yeah. Yes, exactly. He doesn't want the poor to rise up to their superiors and shake off their yoke. He also doesn't want the rich to lose their wealth. Do you guys remember what we were talking about with predestination and the Puritans? They believed that God has kind of destined you for a certain position in heaven. It's like, if you are one of the saved, then you're already saved. And yes, you will be able to show that through your faith and through your actions. You'll kind of get assurance that you're one of the saved, but God has decided where you're going to be. Winthrop takes that idea a little bit further and says he's decided where you're going to be in society too. So if you were born poor, stay poor. That's where you were supposed to be. If you were born rich, stay rich. That's where you're supposed to be. Stop striving to be something that you are not trying to be, and just be comfortable there. And he's not saying like, and that means that we should like, keep everything that we can from the poor. He's also saying like, that means that the rich have a responsibility to help the poor, and the poor have a responsibility to provide for the rich. So by having all of these distinct positions, you kind of create this like mutual need in the body. You don't want any body part to seem extra or superfluous. Yes, JJ.
And like we were saying, if you don't have poor people and they are all rich, then nobody's rich anymore.
Okay, good. So it's this idea of distinctions too, right? So let's talk now about the sinners, because we've got sinners in different spots. Where does the ideal Puritan society put the sinners in their society? In Scarlet Letter, they put Hester in prison. They had an A on her chest, you know. Where would we put them in the body? Because I get why we're putting them down here at the bottom, because we're like, there's something that is lower down in society, right? Ideally, where would they be? Here's where I think they'd be. Here, I'm going to add it to this beautiful picture.
Discarded.
Yes.
That's what I was gonna say.
Maybe these are the children of sinners. I've never thought of that before. I don't know if that one works, but I do think crude, yes. Good. I don't think it made it to the recording. That's what we want. I do think this is ideally kind of where they would envision it. If we're sticking with this body politic metaphor, right? Yes, the body might sin. It's kind of a necessity of society. But one of the reasons that you get rid of the sin is to distinguish between what is sin and what is not. This is the way our body distinguishes between what is toxic and what is not. You know, we expel what we don't want in there anymore. Same question as the hair. When is this not a part of us anymore? It's disturbing to think about. Anyway, so yeah, so there's this there's this idea that you kind of like push the sin out so that that was not a good way to put that. That was a nasty way to put that. Sorry. But you make it go away, and you flush it. This is just toilet day, I think. All right, let's talk about God and priests and so on. So you guys all have God up here in the brain, and you were saying that it is because God sort of is directing everything they do, right? What is the relationship then between God and the priests? Yeah.
I think for ours at least, God is like the perspective of everyone because it's the eyes, and then priests and like reverend and people who do that is like the mouth because they're the word of God. They're seeing that, yet they're the ones that are kind of projecting.
Okay, good. So it's like they get to have the relationship with God, right? They're the ones, they're seeing God. The reverend kind of like sees the reverend has this sort of like close relationship in terms of proximity to the eyes, and the reverend says stuff, and that's how kind of the body operates, is based on what the reverend says. Dallin?
We put our priest as the neck.
Yes.
God as the head, so it kind of like connects God to the rest of society.
Okay, good. So then again, I really like that. And if your guy was to tragically be beheaded, you wouldn't have that relationship between God and the rest of the body anymore, right? Without priests, that wouldn't be possible. And you also, lots of these people have government up here in the head too. So let's pretend same way. You get so sad you've gotten beheaded. The government, God, and the reverend now has no relationship to the body. And I absolutely think that's what Winthrop is saying.
And the government, kind of in ours, it's like the brain kind of runs the body, and without it, it's kind of.
Yeah, right. Okay, what do you guys think of this model? It's super interesting to me, this idea that everyone should be in their own place is one of the ideas that kind of started America, because these days we absolutely do not have that as part of our American mythos, right? Our American dream is about changing position in society. You work hard, you get to move up in the rungs. You're poor and you don't want to be the feet anymore. Well, work hard and you can become the hands. So what do you think of Winthrop's idea here? Nice, not nice? Would it work? Would it not work? Yes, Sophia.
I think it makes sense for their time, just because most of the focus wasn't on, kind of, they didn't have that luxury of all of the, riches and stuff. And so to have everyone, especially in such a small society, there wasn't many people there. They all need to have like their parts. They all had to play a part so that they could keep going.
Okay, good. So what you started off with there is that here's a bunch of people coming to America from England. They're all starting out pretty low. If we are comparing the rich to the poor, the comparison is not Jeff Bezos and any of us. The comparison is like a guy who came over with a bag full of seeds and a guy who only had half as many seeds, right? Like it's not as big of a difference. So it makes sense to create that mutual need among people. Yeah, Brent.
They didn't have as many like opportunities colleges and like specialty schools and stuff, it was like, if you're like if your mom was like a seamstress or something, then she teaches you to be a seamstress and then that's what you do.
Okay, good. Yeah, so there's also a strong emphasis on tradition, and that is tradition in the way we've been talking about with Scarlet Letter, which is like a religious tradition. But there's also tradition in the way that like my parents were blacksmiths, so I'm gonna be blacksmiths, like really honoring your parents by sort of taking their place in the body politic. All right, any other ideas about whether or not this Winthrop model would work? What do you think of this idea? We have a pretty strong idea about separation of church and state. So why might that become a problem for the Puritans? Yeah, Kaylee.
Because you have like the state has their own religion.
Mhm. Okay, great. So when Winthrop is talking on a boat and there's, you know, a couple hundred people on the boat, then this idea of having a monoculture makes a lot of sense and might be like an ideal for them. Let's just keep it us, you know. But as soon as other people start interacting with them, it becomes a problem. What do you guys think of this idea? No, the poop. What do you think about the idea to expel sinners from your society? I mean, we kind of do that when we put people in prison and try and pretend they don't exist, you know? Is that a good way of looking at it? All right, we only have a couple more minutes. We have 6 more minutes. Here's what I'm gonna have you do. In your same groups that you were working in, and on that same paper where you were drawing the body politic, I want you just to brainstorm, just write some notes down about how Hawthorne feels about this vision of the body politic. So the Scarlet Letter totally shows us this body politic. I think it adheres, it really supports Winthrop's body politic in that Puritan culture. But Hawthorne, the writer of the book, he is not supportive of this version of the body politic. He's critiquing this. So write down in what ways he's critiquing it. What problems does he have with this?
He literally.
All right, Sophia, that is, or sorry, why did I say that? Sophia's here.
I just turned in my annotations.
Let me look at it. 1 second. So whoever is absent today, that is it for today. Just write down that stuff, draw your picture, take a picture of your body politic and submit it for participation points.